But yeah, I agree with you. I think a lot of it is actually the media blowing it up.
You know, I think we need to bring this into the real world and talk to someone who actually was terminated from his position as an adjunct professor at UCLA, one of the finer institutions. And he is a graduate of UCLA, so we don't want to slash him. And at his law firm, he has employed a number of UCLA grads, some of his students. So definitely he has supported UCLA, but apparently he found some reason in his lectures to not necessarily condone all of the actions of the administration. And his name is Keith Fink. He's of Keith A. Fink Associates, and he has handled a number of high-profile cases over the years. Typically, he has been on the underdog side. He's gone up against Ellen DeGeneres and John and Rotten and Babyface, American Apparel, Marilyn Manson, ESPN, Kobe Bryant, some other big companies and corporations and individuals, and he's done very well, prevailing on a number of these high-profile cases. For the last 10 years, he's been a professor, an adjunct professor over at UCLA, and then recently, after what they call, quote, an excellence review, end quote, his job was terminated. He's filed a grievance with the union over his dismissal, and he's here with us today on Gurvey's Law. Welcome to Gurvey's Law, Keith Fink.
Thank you, Alan, for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Now, that was a really wimpy response to me. You have been known at UCLA as probably the greatest debater of all time. It was Thomas Henkel Miller, one of the lecturers there, that says in the history of UCLA debating, here he is, the number one. And with Lisa Bloom, they won just about everything they could have back in 1984.
Yes.
That's it.
That's how a debater gets it. I got to tell you, when I was debating at the University of Manitoba, there was a Rhodes Scholar named Tom Patterson, who was an attorney here in Century City, and I was a freshman. I went to the debate lunch meeting that we had, and I was so into it. Tom Patterson, Rhodes Scholar, the number one guy, and after the session, I went up to him. I got all the guts I could. I went up to Tom Patterson, the little freshman, and I gave him my argument out in the hall.
Well,
wait a second. I got to tell the story. He looked at me and walked away. Didn't say a word to me. I was crushed. The master debater.
And a cunning linguist.
wouldn't even respond.
I'm a little nervous being here today because I grew up listening to Top 40 Countdown. And I never met your father.
Well,
and so
nice to meet you.
I was excited, of course, Alan, to meet you, but to meet an offspring of somebody I grew up listening to every weekend. So I'm fired up to be here. And sitting in the last segment, I thoroughly enjoyed that. It's all the material I go over in my class, and your show is obviously a wonderful show to have people like Lisa Bloom, who's just an amazing mind and person, and she fights zealously for her clients. So you're very lucky to have guests like that.
But Gloria Allred is amazing. Her mom,
not everyone,
incredible.
Right, and Gloria Allred, who's been on the show a number of times, Erwin Chemerinsky, but on our show many times, but not all of these folks are of the same political persuasion, because we try to balance it out. We had Professor McConnell from Stanford, who's as right-wing as they come, and of course, John, what's the guy from Chapman? Why am I? Oh,
I know exactly who you're talking about. I'm blanking too.
Debbie?
Well, this is why I'm fighting so hard relative to my situation at UCLA. So when I was a young person, Lisa was my college debate partner, and back then people would say I was to the right and she was to the left. And it was wonderful having somebody like Lisa with differing ideas that were reasoned, that were well thought even at that young age, to push me, to test me, to probe me, and I was able to crystallize my own view views. And, at 18 and 19, they haven't much, much experience and much thought. And your views really are nuanced. Nobody really is for or against the death penalty. Even I'm for the death penalty. Am I for the death penalty for someone whose IQ is less than 70, for someone who is 11 years old? So I believe in college, it is the marketplace of ideas. You want to have intellectual pluralism, and you want Lisa Blooms, you want liberals, you want conservatives, both as students and as teachers.
That's true, and that makes the point very well. And it begs the question, though, were you relieved of your duties because you said things against the administration in some of your lectures, which you have admitted, and not necessarily trying to trash them, but just trying to teach? Or was it because of your conservative political views?
I was let go for several reasons. I would say first is because in my classes, I empower students with knowledge of what their rights are. And UCLA does not want students to know what their rights are. It's very easy to trample on a student's First Amendment rights when they put up a poster linking MSA and SJP to Hamas. Because students don't know the full extent of their rights on a university campus to free speech. And when Dean Kang sends out one of his interim emails trying to equate that with the case law that says those types of posters incite violence, he's absolutely wrong. And when Dean Kang puts in those types of emails that the university will use all of its lawful resources to go after those who post those types of messages, it's very chilling for students. So I empower students in knowledge of what their rights are, but not only in the issue of free speech. What I think angers them more, and if you look at the review by Professor Bryant, is my criticism of UC in general and UCLA specifically as it relates to Title IX.
Vice Chair Greg Bryant said, as he went to one of your lectures, he said, this is the first instance of many throughout the class where he seemed to be using his lecturer role as a means to espouse his personal legal views. I felt like this aspect reduced his credibility, even when I agree with his specific legal points, which in this lecture overall was often. The course is political in nature, but I could imagine his treatment of the issues being much more balanced, which I believe would greatly enhance his teaching effectiveness.
I do not tell students what to think. My role is to make students think. And students get at UCLA pretty much one side of the equation. So, look, I can know walking in to a class that almost all the kids believe that minimum wage laws are good and that we should have a higher living wage. I don't even have to present the position why minimum wage should be $12 or $15.
But is that your job? Is it your job to espouse a political view, whether it's $15 or $10?
I don't espouse any views. I present both sides in my classes. My point here to you is students have already, minimum wage example, they've already been told and drilled by those on the left, the progressives at UCLA, that there are no arguments against having a living wage. I don't have to spend much time articulating reasons why one would support a minimum wage.
When I went to school at Brown, and it was a liberal institution, I didn't seem to notice how much politics affected the lecturing. Hasn't that changed over the years? And that was some years ago. But why is it now that the politics of a professor is such an integral part of the university's presentation of education?
Well, I mean, the radical, the progressives have taken over the universities.
Yeah.
You really believe that?
Absolutely. So let me, I was finishing my point here. I empower students in the knowledge. It's not so much the free speech aspect. In UCLA, it's time and time again where it's the Kanye Western costume party, it's the Asians in the library video, it's the posters on campus. It's the issue with Title IX that I believe upsets them most. And I'm critical on almost all fronts of UCLA's policies and the way they handle investigations, both as it relates to victims of sexual assault and sexual abuse and to those who are accused. So the Greg Bryant letter, for example, it was timely. My class goes over, it's called Race, Sex, and Politics, Free Speech on Campus. And the second and third week, I go over sexual assault, sexual harassment on college campuses. I go over affirmative consent laws. And so my discussion of an email that Dean King put out right before my class fits seamlessly into the material I had already taught the students. And so in discussing that, I was critical. My own personal view was critical, but I wasn't trying to push that on the students. This had to do with mandatory reporting. So let me explain to you what mandatory reporting is. Many students trust me. They bond with me. They trust me. For example, they view me as a confidant. This can be females or males. So put yourself now in the shoes of an 18-year-old young lady that is a victim of sexual assault. They don't have too many confidants in their life. Maybe their parents, and maybe they don't want to talk to their parents about sexual assault. And they may become attending UCLA from out of state. So they would like to speak to me in a confidential capacity. They trust me. They respect me. They know that I know about the nuances of sexual assault. Under the mandatory reporting requirement, a teacher must then report this incident to Title IX. I mean, I think this vitiates a very important thing that we want. We want these students to get comfort, to get proper guidance.
Is it your job, though, to criticize the UCLA officers, the Title IX officers?
I have every right to do that, absolutely. Okay. Every right to do that, and FIRE, probably the preeminent organization for First Amendment and free speech in this country, analyzed my case. They take cases for both students and faculty when they think that First Amendment rights have been abridged. And their analysis is crystal clear here, because when you look at the reason, if there was any teacher that's excellent at UCLA, it's me. Okay,
by the way,
and that's not
FIRE. I know.
I mean, and that's not really saying much.
No, but
because the criteria they use. Look, well, you're going to get me fired up now.
Okay, before I get you fired up, let's talk about FIRE. First, really quick question: did they respond by August 8th? FIRE asked UCLA to respond to their letter by August 18th. Did they respond?
Okay, so I'll reveal this. The UCLA's done a double take. Tom Tamberg, who is the crisis management person at UCLA, who used to be the apologist for the Archdiocese in child abuse cases, immediately responded to FIRE and said, UCLA is not going to respond. Fink was given a basic due process, his generic response, and we don't discuss personnel matters. Even though they discussed my personal matter with the Chronicle of Higher Education, privacy rights don't apply to me because I'm not a student, so FERPA doesn't apply, and I waive all my privacy rights. 2 days ago, they did an about-face. The UC office of the president said to FIRE, please give us time.
Really?
Oh, yes. Well, you know, so because FIRE was going to respond back. I mean, FIRE is no wallflower.
Yeah.
And then please give us time. Please give us time. We are going to respond. This is somebody in the UC, an attorney.
So you are expecting a response, or at least FIRE is.
Please. Well, they can't say much in their response. If you look at the reason why Dean Gomez let me go. Did you read the reasons?
Yeah.
There are no reasons.
Well, Gomez didn't give reasons, but Bryant says at one point he quipped how he was surprised that the current class got approved in the first place and repeatedly attacked UCLA as not supportive of free speech rights. He goes on to say, I believe Mr. Fink clearly has a right to express these views, especially in a class on that topic of free speech. But as a teaching technique, I feel the more he belabors his points about UCLA in particular, the more he undermines his credibility and objectivity as an instructor. Isn't it true, Keith, that he really is focusing on you criticizing UCLA, the administration, Title IX officers, etc., versus what you're saying, which is your political perspective or your focus on free speech? Or
are they using that to get you out of there because they are really upset about your political affiliation? Is that what's happening?
Yes, that's FIRE's position. The biggest mistake UCLA made was actually the Bryant letter. So FIRE jumped all over the Bryant letter because the Bryant letter is proof in the pudding that the actual reason, if you believe Bryant, that they got rid of me and they didn't like the way I was teaching of my class is because of my in-class speech where I criticize the administration on various policy issues. But let me just tell you this, as it's funny, you're talking about who is a better teacher, Brian or myself. You must get teachers and teach students engaged and interested. And what better way to do that at UCLA? If I was teaching at Brown, I would use examples at Brown or Yale.
I have 30 comments from your students saying you're an amazing and wonderful teacher.
Yeah, I was about to ask that.
Before I say this, I want to say this is very important. I'm an employer, as are you. I have a law firm. You have a law firm. If one of your associates goes around at court and says that Gurvey is a total a-hole, he's a jerk, he yells and screams at everyone, which may be true, but the fact of the matter is I can't have that person working for me.
Well, okay, now you're getting, but that's nuanced, Al, and that's true. In that context, you can let that person go. However, if that person was engaging in concerted activity on Facebook relative to Gurvey's perhaps unfair pay issues, you might have issues with the NLRB. I was listening to your segment before. You know, some states have enacted, and New York is one. We enacted one, is lifestyle discrimination laws. I mean, this is an interesting public policy issue. Is if people are engaging in off-duty conduct, okay, purely off-duty conduct, that's not illegal, should they be protected for that? I mean, that's interesting. So do you believe in this at-will doctrine?
But you are differentiating your situation as a lecturer at UCLA from the example that I gave as an employee of mine at the Rowan, Gurvey, and Winwall law firm.
Well, yes, I'm working for a public institution. So as the previous guest was articulating, she was absolutely right. She was explaining this called the Pickering balance, where there was two elements. Are you engaging in speech of a public concern? And then there's a balancing test, and she grafted on a third element from a case called Garcetti, which talks about if you speak in your official duties, then you don't get protection. But that doesn't apply to teachers. So yes, Alan, if I worked for you, I would not bash Alan Gurvey's personnel policies, right, even if I disagreed with them. I would move on to another law firm.
Interestingly enough, we have to take a break, but one of the things that I found very interesting in your response was when you talked about some of the comments that were made that may have been denigrating races or whatever, you were talking about in the context of teaching free speech and in the context of cases. You weren't espousing necessarily your own personal views. That was part of the lecture on free speech. Isn't that right?
Well, I would never denigrate any race.
And that's what I'm saying.
But if you're teaching... Well,
they accuse you of saying things.
They don't accuse me. They tried to have some student write some opaque letter where they say that I use racial epithets during my lectures. Of course I do. If I'm teaching the law on harassment, racial harassment, if you use the N-word in the workplace, is that better or worse for a case? Of course it's better. Then the question is that sufficient for a hostile environment? Maybe, maybe not. The general rule had been it's not, because it has to be severe or pervasive. One use of the N-word wouldn't be sufficient. But then you talk about the history of using that word, and maybe perhaps that word is so odious, so painful in our history that that's sufficient. So, of course, when I'm talking about discrimination against Hispanics, I got to talk about...
Take a break. One of your students said, I love this professor. He's an epitome of a role model, amazing educator, and I'm so lucky to have been his student for his high knowledge, guidance, and wisdom. We're talking to Keith Fink. We have one more segment with Keith. You don't want to miss it. You're listening to Gurvey's Law right here on Talk Radio 790 KABC.
You check things all the time, like your email every 10 seconds, or your ex's Instagram. But what about checking something as important as your credit? Well, Discover makes it quick, easy, and best of all, free. Discover is now offering FICO credit scores to everyone for free, even if you're not a customer. And checking your score won't hurt your credit. We call it the Discover Credit Scorecard. And once you know your score, you should check to see if your current credit card is the best fit for you. Check your credit, compare your card. Go to discover.com/credit scorecard. Limitations apply.
You're unique, so why is your mattress one size fits all? Because a custom mattress costs thousands, until now. Hi, I'm Christian von Rickenbach, founder of HelixSleep.com, where you can buy a mattress online, customized for you, for hundreds of dollars instead of thousands. Go to HelixSleep.com, answer a few simple questions, and we build you the most comfortable mattress you'll ever sleep on. Shipping is free, and you have 100 nights to try it out. Go to HelixSleep.com/talkradio and get $50 off your order. HelixSleep.com/talkradio.
Are you concerned about your prostate? Do you pee more often than you used to? Be honest, is there a drop in your romantic life? You need to call for a free bottle of Super Beta Prostate. With Super Beta Prostate, you'll have less urges to urinate, less waking at night, and an improvement in your romantic life guaranteed. Try it free. Pay only shipping and handling. Call 1-800-467-5090. 1-800-467-5090. 1-800-467-5090.
High efficiency, high performance, high tech. The next generation of appliances at the Home Depot is everything except high priced. Because right now you can save up to 25% on top brands like LG, KitchenAid, GE, and Samsung. These appliances are loaded with features that make them smarter, more efficient, and easier to use, and now easier to afford. Nobody beats our prices, guaranteed. So upgrade your appliances today and save up to 25%. Only at the Home Depot. More saving, more doing. U.S. only while supplies last. See store for details. Valid through August 23rd.
Life's never perfect, but as realtors, we know living it in the perfect place can make a big difference. Imagine hiding from your screeching children in that spacious walk-in closet, watching the neighbor's dog poop on the freshly sodded grass you negotiated during closing, dropping your cell phone in the toilet of the spa-like five-piece bathroom again. Look at the perfect place to house all of life's imperfections. Get Realtor. Realtors are members of the National Association.
The intersection of law and life on Talk Radio 790 KABC.
I think I'm just going to listen to music for the rest of the hour.
Tom Petty's great.
Yeah,
I grew up with him.
Jose.
You know that, right? I told you that story.
I think
in his house.
You had sex with him.
Right, exactly. Him and his wife and his kids and everybody. You're disgusting. My God. I was a child. I was a child when I was in his house.
I'm going to get terminated.
With the traveling Wolverines.
KBC will be terminating me for my views.
Awful. I'll be terminating you. You're out of here.
I thought that was a compliment.
That was awful.
It's a compliment.
When I was in his house, it was like from 11 to about 14 when we all hung out.
Okay, well, it's a little early. She's Carrie Kasem. I'm Alan Gurvey. We're talking to Keith Fink, who has filed a grievance with his union for his dismissal at UCLA. One of his students said, I had no interest in becoming a lawyer prior to this class, but Professor Fink brings out the excitement in being a lawyer. I didn't know it was exciting. And the law in general. Everything I have learned in this class is very applicable to life, even without going to law as a professor. Profession.
There we go.
Professor Fink makes interesting connections of the course material with current events, which makes the materials more tangible. But what Professor Fink decided to do was go on the Tucker Carlson show on Fox. And apparently UCLA didn't like that, did they, Keith?
They hated it. Of all the shows to go on, Tucker Carlson, which has the most views, that pissed them off the most. No doubt about that.
Why did he do it?
Why wouldn't I do it? I mean, they think they're gonna push me out and sweep me under the rug. I mean, they made every mistake in the book. I was the wrong person to treat unjustly. And I'm not fighting for myself. I am fighting for the students and for principals. And I need to teach the students slight indignities, petty grievances, you let go. But there are certain principles, free speech, academic freedom, discrimination, that you must fight for. And you must put your life on the line. I'm not saying you put your lifeline for academic freedom, for racism. So I need to be an example for the students. So they chose the wrong teacher. Of one teacher, I am the wrong teacher to fight. I have student support. I know the law. And I have pretty good access to the media, and I can handle myself in front of the media.
You have another job with some important
I have to ask this because I've been waiting. 30 different students coming out saying, this guy's amazing. He's a great teacher. He's influenced me in ways that I never thought, like I want to be a lawyer, whatever it may be. Has all these students rising up saying, hey, this is not okay. Does that have any effect on the administration?
They could care less. I believe generally the administration has contempt for the students. The only thing that they care about other than hugging each other in their safe spaces and bashing Trump and bashing Donald Trump is donor money. Yeah. That's it. If Mr. Pritzker decided that he's upset. He's heard about the Fink situation and the lack of diversity and the refusal to engage in due process at UCLA. If he said, I have concerns about making my contribution, they would have me back tomorrow.
Does Thomas Henkel Miller's letter mean anything when he says that I believe that Keith Fink is an excellent instructor and is fully deserving of a continuing lecture appointment? The evidence of his teaching excellence is all that should go into this review.
Well, I think Miller's letter is important, but you can forget about Miller's letter. If I wrote a 7-page letter to Dean Gomez, which follows their criteria, it's very simple. On their own criteria and their own metrics, the highest-rated teacher in the department is me. The most popular teacher in the department is me.
And the
how am I not
teacher
excellent?
in the department is you.
Well, and that is why Dean Gomez couldn't put a single reason in her 5-cents letter. Thank you for playing for 10 years, Keith, but no thank you and have a good life.
Here are your parting gifts.
And she thought there'd be no pushback.
Keith, what's going to happen now? You filed a grievance. You haven't filed a lawsuit. What do you do next? Because you make these points. You want people to know about this. What happens now?
I do. I want people to know about this because I was born in Los Angeles. I was born in Santa Monica. I was born in Los Angeles. This community means a lot to me. UCLA means a tremendous amount to me. And as you read those reviews or comments from my students, money doesn't matter to me. Money is not the most important thing, which is when you actually saw, Brian, when I'm talking about the beauty of art, when I traveled to Mexico City to see Diego Rivera, you can't put a price tag on a Robert Frost poem. Being able to be a positive influence in these kids' lives, and sometimes I play Tom Petty songs or Phil Oakes or Bob Dylan. Being able to expose to these wonderful students new ideas, whether it's philosophers, artists, and to help them in their thought process to be a positive influence and mentor in their lives, that means more to me than anything that I do. And sure, as a lawyer, I'm able to help usually one person on a case.
Isn't it true that it's how you teach, not what you teach? Because we have so many teachers, professors, who put kids to sleep, who turn them off, and here you are trying to excite them, try to get them interested in these topics, and you're not there. Couldn't you pull back a little bit? Couldn't you have used your magnetism, your debating skills, and not gone overboard in certain situations?
Of course I could have, but that's not me. That's not me, and I'm not going to. I would never sell myself out. But yes, of course, I'm not stupid, Alan. I could have avoided. I could have avoided all those issues. Yes, I could have been a rather more plain vanilla. Yeah, never use UCLA as a high. Look, when I'm teaching, the seminal case on this is out of George Mason. They had a fraternity had an ugly woman contest, and I think most people would think that type of activity was sophomoric. But the court found that even offensive type of speech, racist speech, that is protected. Now, most college students don't understand that type of activity is protected. What better example to use than UCLA's own trampling of students' rights when they had the Kanye Western party and the students dressed up? There's an immediate rush to judgment. They didn't have blackface actually here. They had gold paint. But UCLA didn't accord them due process, and even if it was black paint, using that case, UCLA would have violated their First Amendment rights for punishing the students for engaging in that type of speech. So, yes, I could have avoided that example, but the students are more engaged.
Mm-hmm. What about organizations, anti-Israel, anti-Jewish organizations? Do they have a right at UCLA?
I think the UC campuses, I played the documentary Hate Spaces. I think the UC campuses in general are some of the most anti-Semitic campuses in the nation. And UCLA rates right up there. And I'm extremely critical. You saw me on Tucker Carlson once. I compared the complete hypocrisy and double standards UCLA employs when they'll basically support the MSA and SJP and criticize Horowitz and his posters, and they'll say absolutely nothing when the Daily Bruin runs one of the most anti-Semitic cartoons. Now,
do they have a right to do it?
Absolutely they do. And I tell my students, absolutely they do. And in fact, this is how I am completely objective. I don't change my own point of view depending upon, because I am Jewish, depending upon, where I was born. They have every absolute, and the Daily Bruin was wrong in capitulating to pressure and apologizing for running that cartoon.
Will the ACLU support you?
Probably not.
Why? They supported those people in Charlottesville.
This is where, I guess Trump is right on some things. It's fake news. It's interesting that either my story is a story or it's not a story. It seems for 7 months to have gotten national attention. Why doesn't the LA Times do a story on it? Why doesn't CNN have me on their show? It's only the conservative media that has reached out really to grab a hold of my story, and the story isn't political left or right.
And by the way, we don't believe one way or the other. We talked about having Gloria Allred, Erwin Chemerinsky. We're having you. We have Eugene Volokh. We're the only place in this country which is not right, not left. We're just letting views come out. Your view and other views, Lisa Bloom's view, Laura Wasser's view, whoever it is. We are the only objective place where we honor your speech. What's going to happen? You have 2 minutes. Tell us. Where are we going? Is this going to be groundbreaking? Is this another Garcetti?
No, I wouldn't say it's groundbreaking. I mean, my situation is a microcosm of the macrocosm. This is happening all over the country. Most people wouldn't fight like I fought for a number of reasons, not the least of which is, do you think USC is going to be knocking at a teacher's door when they say, hey, you're that teacher that lit UCLA on fire after they let you go? Oh, we want to hire you. You're the guy that's going to sue us. So no, this is not going to be another ground-breaking case. No, but we have only 1 minute. We only have 1 minute left, and I only wanted to mention, because I think this point, if I'm not going to be on the campus, this point is so important. One of the reasons they really want to push me off is they do not do right by students accused of sexual assault, and of course, serious crimes, sexual assault, sexual harassment, and this is under Title IX. And every single student that goes to UCLA, they better tremble, given the fact that if you're accused, you basically have no due process rights. You have, and without me there, you no longer can come to Keith Fink as your faculty support person.
And but you can go to Keith A. Fink Associates in L.A.
No, they can't go to a lawyer. They can't go to a lawyer.
You are correctly right. The process, that's right. The process does not give you the right to a lawyer.
I mean, it sounds like you're in bed with Lisa Bloom on this issue.
You're trying to goat me here. I'm in bed with Lisa on what issue? I mean, on a lot of issues. I'm sure.
Harassment.
Oh, well, yes, I am. I represent both. I do both sides in sexual harassment. Actually, your friend from Canada, I sued him for 10 years, Dove Charney. Yeah. And then when Dove was let go, I'm now Dove's lawyer for 3 years. So, yeah, I represent both.
You still are helping people. Whatever happens with this, teach at another school, Southwestern, your alma mater. Go for it.
I can, but my connection is to UCLA.
Okay.
Thank you, Alan.
Keith Fink, thank you so much for being on Gurvey's Law today.
Thank you both for having me. Anytime.
And thanks, everyone, for listening. We're going out with Tom Petty, and we'll see you next week.
This show furnished by Rowan, Gurvey, and Wynn.